Welcome back to Maximum News, the podcast where we don't fail upward. Inside joke. I'm your host, as always, your friendly neighborhood Simpsonskin, Maximilian Danger, Derrat, and I'm joined, as always, by Sybsidian of the Triple S League. How's it going, man?
Hello. It's going okay. Things are, I said a couple of weeks ago, it's like, I don't think this year is going to be a great year for a lot of people. And unfortunately, I have been correct on that observation. But we don't want to keep things down. We want to keep things happy and excited. And the Diablo IV beta is out this week.
And it doesn't suck, from what I understand.
Yeah, well, not that much. There are some tidbits here and there, but thankfully, Max had the opportunity to get a copy. The only thing is that you had to eat 8 KFC double downs, and unfortunately, you couldn't make it past the first one. Unfortunately, was that true? You just kind of started vomiting.
Dude, I couldn't even look at the goddamn thing before I started to puke. Like, seriously, I forgot about the double down thing. I remember it was like this huge thing like 10 years ago when I was in high school, and apparently it's still around. But yeah, you could get a beta code by buying these things, and I could have done that when I was in the States recently with my fiance. My tall, lanky body wouldn't be able to handle one of those things, man. I'd go into an immediate coma. Why is that a thing?
You know, it's so weird that it's more of a thing than most people think it is or know it to be. There's a double down deal going on nonstop, as far as I understand. It's basically nonstop around the world, but they move it from country to country to country to country. And I've been scratching my head because one of the most popular places for it to be is in the Philippines, and then one or two other kind of like Pacific Eastern Island nations as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it just makes a round, and they do weird things with it. Like one of the versions in was it the Philippines or Poland? One of those locations they had it was cheese, pineapple, chicken, and it's like, that's actually sounds a little bit interesting, but every time you look at it, you're like, oh Lord, that is 2 giant pieces of chicken with extra crispy coating with a bunch of cheese and then bacon and then other things, and it's like,
maybe if you're feeling adventurous and you're on vacation, you take a small bite. But
well, maybe if you're like hardcore into keto, I guess. Maybe it's not that bad. I don't know. It depends on the skin, right?
Yeah, but God, even people are into keto. I can't fathom how somebody can look at that and think about eating it and not worry about dying. I'm sorry. Like, maybe I'm just projecting too much of my own physiology onto this thing. But anyways, Diablo. So I'm not a Diablo guy. For the most part, I haven't really been into any of Blizzard's franchises. The only one up until recently that I was into was World of Warcraft, and I had to stop myself from playing it twice in my life because I was too addicted to it. And then more recently, Overwatch, but never played Diablo. None of the gameplay, the top-down, none of that really ever appealed to me. But I know, Diablo is your jam.
Well, not my jam. So sort of. So I'll give a very brief rundown. So Diablo came out, the first one, when I was still fairly young, and I would watch my brother play it, and he would play it, and I would play it, and I very much enjoyed Diablo 1. We did complete the game, and then Diablo 2 came around. And by the time I got a chance to really get my hands on that, it was actually during a college break. And I went, and that was a little while after I came out, actually. And I managed to actually play through the whole thing in one, I think it was the summer break time or whatever, because I was staying with friends of the family out in some place that I didn't know anybody else at. But the way I play Diablo 1 and 2, I skipped 3, and that's important to note. But the way that I normally play Diablo is I don't play it like people play 2 and 3, where they just keep playing it. You know, that you beat the game and then you play through it again, and then you beat the game and then you play through it again, and then you beat the game and you play through it again, and then you beat the game and you play through it again.
Yeah.
and you have like scaling difficulty, and you're trying to like collect the best pieces. I would play it once through, see the story. In Diablo 2, I restarted once or twice because I wanted to like see a couple of the first bosses, and you didn't always get each of them spawning. I wanted especially to get like two of the first bosses, but my first playthrough I got a third one that I didn't actually care about at all. And so I restarted and played that again to like get those other two bosses to kind of get the atmospheric feeling of it. But Diablo to me is not like, I don't approach it like most people. I don't approach it as this like just spam your way through the full breadth of the game like 40 times in a career of playing the game, like in a lifetime of playing the game. I just play it once for the story. I catch as much of the story beats as I can. I read a lot of the lore, and then that's it. That I'm done. I have no desire to do multiplayer PvP.
Yeah.
I have zero desire to like play on like, you know, the hell version 15 of it.
With the cows.
Yeah, well, the cows that was always just kind of a funny thing.
Yeah.
But it was like I never really got into the whole repetition gameplay because I think that it's a little on the boring side. It's like if like I do like raids and harder content like that, and it's been a while since I've been able to get into anything that's like really fits that, and it's kind of sad because I really did like that aspect, especially way back in like Wrath of the Lich King. I like the idea of hunting bosses with, you know, a team, you know, and especially when you put that team together and you help every member of that team get to be their best version of themselves. It's like, that is an experience that I can't ever really forget or put down, as far as like, you know, wishing that I could go through that again and really feel that, you know, kind of one of those things from like playing the first time again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Diablo is out in its beta format.
Yeah.
Open beta drops next week. I asked our community if they wanted us to like pick it up, play it through this. And the answer I got basically was a hard no. like most people were like, no, we're really not interested in supporting them. So we decided that, yeah, because we couldn't get the double down deal, because we couldn't do a couple other, we didn't want to pre-order it. Even if we retracted the pre-order later on, we decided we'll mess around with it a little bit on the free beta, and then kind of that'll make the choice. But if I do pick it up, I'm not going to be playing through the game over and over and over and over again. I'm going to play through it once to get the story, get the feel of the game, and then that's it. Because yeah, and even then, when I looked at the game, it looked, for the most part, looks good.
Yeah. With
the exception of the character creator, which is bizarre because the character creator in the mobile game Diablo Immortal, which is a disgusting pile of garbage,
a blight to humanity,
for some odd reason, and I don't know why, the character creator in that game is like 1,000 times better than the character creator in Diablo 4. What in the world? How did that become a thing?
Do you think that they just took it out for some reason because it's the beta?
I have no idea. I don't know if it's because they were raving about this one feature where your character shows up in all of the like the super high quality rendered screen cinematic pieces, right?
Yep.
It's like they found a way to put your model into the cinematics, so they render you into the cinematics, and it's like, wow, cool. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. That's a really cool tech, Blizzard. You know, that's amazing work. Then I saw that, well, it's the same body. Like you have basically they got like 6 models of bodies, and that's it. And you can change the hairstyle, the color, the face paint or the body paint, the color of the paint, and then you can change your eyeballs and your skin color. That, other than that, that's it. That's the only character. So you can't adjust height, you can't adjust, beefiness. You can't really, like, there's very little control over that. So that's the one and only like biggest, like weirdest, annoying thing.
Yeah.
other than a couple of the other complaints being cursed items and cursed chests. There's no way for you to tell if a chest is cursed or not. In other games, there was always, in other, like, in its competitors, that's what I mean by other games. Its competitors, you have that same mechanic where there's cursed items and cursed chests or mimics, or, the chests they aren't actually, there aren't chests, they're mimics. And I always loved mimics. Mimics were one of my favorite monsters in D&D. And I've got to say, just overall, looks like there's no way to tell a difference between it. So I don't know if that's something that they're going to add in, because a lot of people were complaining about it, because you do remove player skill and agency and you drop it down to a complete RNG system, which when you're playing Iron Man mode or like, permadeath mode, like that's a thing that like kills you or doesn't. And that's a little weird, because again, in other games like it, in its competition, you can always tap a chest to see if it's, if it's not, or you can like, tell from subtle like art alterations. You go, that's a mimic, I'm not touching that one. That's a cursed chest, I'm not touching that. So I don't know. This is a question I would throw to the people listening. What are your thoughts on it? Do you think that in a game like Diablo, like a dungeon crawler, does cursed items, cursed health bottles, cursed, do cursed items, should they be like subtly you can figure out whether they're good or bad, or is it just like, you don't care, or like what's your thought on that? I'd be very curious to know.
It should be like Dark Souls, where you can either tell by the thing that, the little chain on the side and which way it's pointing, or you can hit it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because gambling on that's stupid, in my opinion.
Yeah, it makes sense to me to like have that option. But I was wondering, like, if I'm in the, in the blue here, because like, I couldn't figure out whether or not like some people were like, oh yeah, that's so cool. And then other people were like a couple of big streamers were like, what is this? What WTF? No, this is terrible. Like what a giant pile of crap. And then there's some balance issues for sure. There's some bosses that people can. There's this one guy who's just one shot the boss with a basic build, versus like other classes who had to like wail on it for 5 minutes. And it's like, okay, well, one of the classes is clearly overpowered.
Right.
So yeah, there's that. I mean, that's to be expected, especially in a game where you have so many choices and so many different like paths you can go down. And that's one. So the positives, I would say, from the game definitely have improved the overall player choice as far as like power, skills, how you play your character. That appears to me to be very, very, very much like an expanded upon thing. So that I feel confident that that's actually a good thing. That we're seeing something from like that, from that perspective. I think that's great, so that's fine. And then the cinematics look great. The dark theme, dark gothic theme of the universe is like, it's looking good. Obviously they've sanitized it for certain things, which you saw in Diablo 1 and 2, but you haven't seen since. So, I guess the devils have a line when it comes to certain
that's too far, 18,
man. Plus 18 rules. There, the devil shows up and goes, no, hey guys, that person you're about to kill is exposed. Can you put some clothes on them before you execute them, for crying out loud?
I know she's a succubus, but come on, man, show some modesty.
Yeah, like, hey, put something on. That's unacceptable. We're the legions of hell, not Penthouse Magazine. Excuse me. So stuff like that, it makes me laugh, because it is, for me, it's immersion breaking when you're telling like a dark gothic story, but the devil like stops to like hand you clothes before he kills you. It's like, well, that's kind of stupid. But again, that's I understand it's more of a family game now, although I don't see why you'd let any child below the age of like probably 17 play Diablo. Like,
well, there's tons of parents that let their kids play Grand Theft Auto for some reason.
Yeah. We've seen how that goes.
So it's very surprising, like, just given how much we've trashed on Activision Blizzard, and rightly so, for the last little while, that everywhere that I look, people talking about this game, they say that it's great.
Mhm.
At least the beta is. But the
Yeah.
one thing that a lot of people are saying is that, well, this isn't indicative of the true Diablo experience because, as you were alluding to before,
Nope.
the majority of people who play Diablo, they play it as sort of like their second job in a way, kind of like people
Yeah.
play World of Warcraft. And what will determine its true quality is what happens when you get those max level characters and continue to play it for the better and better loot.
Yeah.
We'll see that later. But for now, people are pretty impressed.
Yeah. And I will point this out for sure, because it's been pointed out frequently by a lot of people. Just remember that this happened in Diablo 3 too. So in Diablo 3, they put out a public thing, and the beta was the first act, and the first act was just really good. Like, it was the characters, the classes, the combos, the exploration, the items, the story was all just like on point. It was good. It was polished. It was smart. Then the full game released, and the rest of the acts were, as most people have put it, hot garbage.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know about that.
yeah. Well, again, it's just pulling up, and you also had the connection error that didn't allow most people to play. It was always online, despite the fact that you were playing single player. Those were the kinds of problems that were with 3,
Mhm.
and I suspect, and some of the bigger people have said they're not gonna praise the game completely until they get through all of the acts in the game, until they finish the game, because what happened in number 3 was the same. It came out, everything looked great, and then you got the absolute nightmare that was just the the garbage of trying to play some of these games, because it was just so bad. Some of these levels, some of the monsters, that's what I meant, not games. Because especially some of the mob types where they were doing attacks and they were immortal, but they caused, and if you encountered that as you were playing through like a permadeath mode, that's basically like say goodbye to your character because there's nothing you can do about it. And stuff like that wasn't fun and caused a lot of grief and a lot of frustration. So and I want to make sure that we remember that. I remember that. I keep tabs on that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to say that 100% that this game is great. I'll say that it appears that they have learned some valuable lessons and have brought that into the creation of number 4. And we hope that they will stay that way and that it will stay good, because nobody wants a bad game. We all want good games. We don't want to spend our times playing garbage. So yeah, that's what I'll say there. And I think that overall, like, most of the reviews are kind of sitting there. So don't pre-order. Wait for the open beta. The open beta is there. Don't have to do anything other than make an account with Blizzard. Play the game, see what it's like, see how they've moved on. And just to kind of, was there anything else you wanted to add about Diablo?
Nah, man. Like, I never played it, regrettably. And yeah, the only thing I recall from that entire series was the cow thing and Error 37. I don't know, maybe I'll get into it at some point. Maybe if Diablo 4 happens to exceed people's expectations in some way. We'll see. Anyways.
Well, we could definitely play, if you wanted, we could definitely play and do some multiplayer stuff, because you can do 4-person co-op.
Right, but I'd have to buy it first.
No, in the beta.
It's
beta,
open.
Beta,
my
beta.
bad. My bad.
Yeah.
Okay,
we can at least do the first half act. That'll be fun.
Sure. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we could do that. When is it? When did you say it's coming out? The open beta?
Free beta is, I believe, later this week or next week.
Oh, okay, cool. I might actually have time to do that.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then just as a reminder, the wholesale to Microsoft is moving ahead, and I have had some interesting information come my way. Expect massive firings as soon as Microsoft steps in to take over Blizzard.
A Bobby Kotick?
Firings will not be affecting the ground troops. They'll primarily be focused on what was the term? Inept leadership.
The people who fail upwards.
So, I don't want to get your hopes up. This is a rumor that we've been hearing. It's a rumor that was reported months and months ago. The rumor is making its round again with a little bit more detail this time. Nothing concrete, nothing super to like say for sure, but I will consider Blizzard in a much better light if they move in and they remove everybody that had anything to do with the atrocious treatment of staff, the atrocious treatment of the low the low level employees as far as power within the company, and a big move towards making it so that the company can work on its own in how it was meant to be before Kotick got involved. Because again, some people are like, no, it's Mike Marham's fault. Nah, it's Kotick's fault. Nothing was quite so bad until he took over completely. Yeah. And once he took over completely and had complete control, I mean, things went sideways. And we have lots of voicemails and emails and other things that have been entered into evidence and investigations that didn't do anything. It was the evidence was there. We can all read it. We can all see it. Mm-hmm. But they're not, the government agency clapped him on the back and said, well, you're going to pay a $22 million fine there. And you're going to learn your lesson. They make more than that in a single day.
Yeah.
Imagine being able to do highly illegal things for years and never have to face the music for it until you get told, you have to pay half your day's wage. It's half your day's wage.
Yeah. Good Guys, Lord. Remember there was a time when Activision didn't completely suck. They produced the best Spider-Man games back in the day. Anyways, guys, did you happen to get a code to join the early Diablo IV beta? Let us know what your thoughts are about it in the comment section below. Are you optimistic? Do you have cautious optimism like Syb and I do? Let us know. All right. Moving on to something that I think it's pretty safe to say that you don't have to be cautiously optimistic. You can be overwhelmingly optimistic here. Resident Evil 4, Syb, comes out at the end of this week. I cannot believe how excited I've gotten for this remake. So at the end of last year, we did our video podcast where we did our top 10 most anticipated. Resident Evil 4 was at number 5 on my top 10, but even though it was at number 5, I wasn't looking forward to it as much as I was Starfield, Alan Wake 2, Hogwarts Legacy, Spider-Man 2, but very quickly it's gotten up to that level because of all the early reactions we've been hearing from people about how, despite all of the stuff that we've been hearing about the game behind the scenes, about creative differences between the people that are working on it, that it actually turned out well. Well, we got the reviews this past week, and Syb, across the board, it's overwhelmingly positive. If you go to Metacritic right now, I think there are, out of 100 reviews, only 2 are mixed, and they're high mixed. They're 7 out of 10 reviews, and 7 out of 10 in my and most people's reasonable estimation is a good review. 8 being great, 9 being amazing, and then 10 being a masterpiece. This game is getting 10 out of 10s, 9 out of 10s left and right. Everybody's saying that it keeps everything about the game that was great in the past there, and then taking out everything else that sucked and making it better. So in other words, just getting Ashley a new voice actress and making her not completely helpless. That's enough for me, though, to make me want to pick up this game. It's... I can't wait for it. I'm a little bit worried because I have enough games I have to get to for my own personal channel, but I'm probably going to have to try and put some time aside just so I can play through this and enjoy it with everybody else. It looks amazing. Syb, are you going to end up getting it? And what do you think about the reviews?
Maybe. So so like I said, we had a lot of people playing it in the community. It was a very short beta, or sorry, demo.
Mm-hmm.
It was good though, and overall looks super clean, looks super crisp.
Yeah.
And my ability to play it will probably depend heavily on the time that I have, because we have a lot of games coming out this year. So yeah, so that'll depend on that. But it does, like, you're right. Like, I watched everybody do the demo. We had a big play time in the Discord. We had about 7 people total play through it, and just everybody was like, "Wow, this is so much fun. This is so good. This is such a nice return to like seeing a game that you love dearly." Being done right, because there's been a litany of terrible remakes and redos and stuff like that lately that have just really bottomed out the overall hope that people have in remakes being good. And I've got to say that they've really smashed this one out of the park. Looks smooth, looks great. The terrain looks way more improved. I hope that they haven't cut out as much from the game as they cut out in some of the previous remakes, where they did cut out a little bit of some of the story areas, some of the exploration areas. I would imagine that was due to time constraints, not technological ones, I would imagine, or I would hope maybe. But yeah, the overall, it's like, this is good, this is clean. This gives me hope for us to see a couple other returned format for a couple games. Now, Ash did cover one of the more recent Resident Evil games quite a lot. Mooney does like these games from time to time, so we will probably cover it, and we'll probably get our hands in it a fair bit. But yeah, because it's looking good, and we want to encourage this kind of thing. We want to reward developers when they actually make things functionable. It's good. It puts a smile on your face when you can actually play something that you enjoyed as a kid. Yeah. So yeah, I think they've done a bang up job with this, and it's looking really smooth, and we can't wait to see more of it.
Yeah. The only question at the end of the year is going to be like, which horror remake ends up being the better one, the Dead Space remake or Resident Evil 4 remake? Because I played Dead Space remake. Holy crap, is it good? It is really damn good, and it's going to take a lot for RE4 to top that. However, if you were to go between Dead Space original and Resident Evil 4 original, I'd still say RE4 original is the better game. So maybe it's a bit of an unfair comparison.
It is more like heady, right? Like, there's more puzzly, isn't it, than
Dead Space?
Dead Space? Or is Dead Space the more puzzly one?
I would. They're kind of equivalent in terms of the difficulty of their puzzles. I would say maybe 1 or 2 puzzles in RE4 was a little bit more difficult, but not that much. Like, not so much that it's noticeable. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, it's not.
I remember a time when I was a kid, and I was playing through one of the first Resident Evil games, and you had to combine herbs and things to make, like, stuff. And when you fired your gun and you ran out of bullets, you had to go into your inventory and manually reload that. So, I remember, like, things being way different way back in the day. So, what I'm saying?
I remember there was a time where you put Jill together with a sandwich. All right, let's move on, because that's going to go somewhere weird.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite game, Resident Evil game, was the Jill Valentine's. The original game that focused around Jill and Nemesis. I believe the game was called Nemesis.
Yeah, RE3 Nemesis.
Yeah. It was a smaller, like, part of it, but I enjoyed that way more, because the constantly being hunted was just, like, so much more
intense.
Like, that's so much more intense. It's so much, like, more fear inducing, right? And that's I think that's cool.
Yeah, too bad they couldn't do it properly with the remake. All right, moving on. Yeah, we don't really have that many big stories this week. We're just going to go through these next few really quickly. So I don't know. I know who Zack Snyder is, but I don't know what Rebel Moon is. Am I supposed to know? Like, I haven't heard anything about this until you
You
mentioned it to
don't
me.
know what Rebel Moon is?
No.
You don't know what Rebel Moon is? Well, Rebel Moon.
He's having to look it up himself.
Is it?
Yeah.
So Rebel Moon is a film coming out this year.
Yes, I understand that, but like, why should I care?
I'm obviously hamming this up. No, so Rebel Moon is a Zack Snyder space opera film coming out this year. I'm told that it's gonna like have this feeling between like Mass Effect and Expanse kind of thing. So like kind of like if you like those products, then you'll probably like this. But no, he came out with a huge announcement. Not only is he making this movie, but they have a ridiculously scale RPG video game based off of this. So whether the movie is good or not, we're going to have a huge, apparently ridiculously deep RPG game based around this as well. Now, I don't know, like we said, we have no idea whether this game is going to be any good whatsoever, because we have, like, does Zack Snyder know what makes a fun video game? Does he know how to make something work that well? Like what is the, how much of this is going to be good? How much of this is going to be, terrible? How much of this is going to be just poor adaptations? We've seen a lot of that come around. But yeah, they're working on a massive RPG, and Zack Snyder has been apparently working on both projects at the same time, or at least being like, now I would imagine that he's obviously not coding, but he might be writing story. He might be trying to like combine it that way. Now, Zack Snyder knows how to make a decently good movie. I would say,
yeah,
he's done a lot of really cool movies. He's done a lot of zombie apocalypse movies and a lot of like kind of like your stereotypical like kind of like anti-hero kind of stuff. So I wouldn't put it past him to be able to write a good narrative. It all comes down to a question of who's behind the game, who's making it, how they're making it, and then also a big question of like, most games take way longer than a movie to make.
Oh yeah.
A movie can be made in 2-3 years, for a very large one. But a game that's a air quote ridiculous scale RPG, like you're talking like Starfield, you're talking Skyrim, you're talking, Outer Worlds, those aren't going to be able to be pumped out in the same time period. So
are we Christ, it's taken Bethesda 12 years.
Yeah. So is this going to come out, this year? Is it going to come out after this? When exactly is this going to come out? And that'll all really boil down to whether or not the Rebel Moon is actually good, or whether we're just going to move past it and go, who wants this, right? Because again, that's going to be kind of big. Just because you can make it in film, does that mean, where does that leave us? I don't know. We'll see. There's a lot of really good sci-fi out there. There's, I've been watching, like, we just had The Expanse wrap up. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to get the final season of Expanse. But I mean, theoretically, you wouldn't really want to, because it's technically like, I think that there's a time skip of like 20 or 30 years. So it would be kind of weird to try and up age people, right? Because that never looks good. It's the same as like de-aging people. It's like the technology is getting better for it, but it still feels a little wonky.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've got that. We've got Foundation. We've got all these other shows, and possibly some, we got the Telltale game coming out for Expanse. We've got, I believe there's a game in the works for a couple other ones. So he's entering a big market, and yeah, it really depends on whether or not this is going to be good. So I haven't heard too much about this universe. I don't even know if there's a book series that's connected to it, but it would be interesting to see. And then I'm curious to see what everybody else is thinking or feeling about this. Like,
Yeah, I would. Zack Snyder, he does some stuff that I actually really, really like. I think I'll go on record. I think Man of Steel is probably one of the most underrated comic book movies ever. Same with Watchmen. I think he did a really wonderful job with that. But then there are times where he puts out stuff that I have no idea what the hell he was thinking. I thought that Batman v Superman was a bad. Well, not no. It was incredibly mediocre when it should have been one of the most epic films ever made. Sucker Punch was bad. There's this one other one that I can't remember the name of off the top of my head.
Sucker Punch. Tell me if you agree with this. Sucker Punch basically boiled down to the ending being written by an idiot.
No.
No, it was more than that, because
yeah,
I liked the film all the way up to the last 20 minutes of it.
I would have liked the film. I would have liked the film if the audio was muted the entire time. Let's just put it that way. I'm not talking about that badass music. Obviously, the music was good, but I meant the script in general. I hated it. But yeah, Zack Snyder, he's a creative guy. I'm curious to see what he would be able to do in the context of a video game. It all depends, though, on whether or not a Rebel Moon can can take off. No pun intended. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it could be like a Chronicles of Riddick situation where the movie wasn't particularly good, but the video game was really damn good. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, maybe this might affect it. So I do have two quotes from him here.
Okay.
And this will be kind of funny. So quoting, he was being asked, what he was working on and what, according to the Rebel Moon, universe he was doing, because I think the question stemmed from whether or not he was going to try to do a big universe with it. And he said this, quoting, "The one thing that I'm having a really good time with, and I don't really know if I'm supposed to talk about it," interjection, "no, you're not," end of interjection, "is this RPG that we're doing that is just literally insane and so immersive and so intense and so huge." And then he continued on a little bit later, "There's more coming, but all I can say is that it was pitched to me because I've always wanted to do an RPG we could do it at this scale, or we could do it at a ridiculous scale," end quote. He definitely spoke outside of what he was supposed to, and this is basically so that we know that this game is now being worked on because he said it. We don't know what state it's in, but if it was pitched to him, what that says to me is that maybe these people were working on a sci-fi universe type game, and maybe they realized that their engine would be really good. So they contacted Zack Snyder and said, "Hey, we feel that this could fit in with your upcoming movie as a game tie-in. And if that's the case, then we might actually see a little bit more out of this than we are expecting. Because if it was an existing project that has been built into this world and then launched kind of from there, I think that might be a pretty good idea. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully things turn out well for him, given everything that Zack Snyder has been through in terms of his career and his personal life. I am pulling for him to win, even if I'm not totally in love with everything that he's done. All right, a couple more stories. Netflix, that making games, right? Okay. Let's be fair to them. They only announced that they were going to start making games a year ago, right? Something like that. And how have things been going since then?
Only 1% of their entire audience interacts with the game feature. That includes people who accidentally click on it, not knowing what it is, and then they give up 5 seconds later. So those aren't great numbers for somebody who wants to move a bulk of their monetization and funding into game aspect of it, but it's also not easy to create a new gaming platform either. It's a very difficult thing. Epic has had huge difficulty with this over the last few years, despite the fact that they popped out numbers saying, "Oh, hey, they're doing absolutely amazing, and people should really like stay tuned because they've got some really cool stuff coming." The proof is in the pudding, and right now, as far as the actual like Epic store, it's not that great. But again, that doesn't mean that it won't be great, in the future. So it's right now they said to this year that they're announcing up to 44 new games, I believe it is. So that's big.
Right.
And again, depending on what they are and how they're presented and how much of an indie new brilliant mind you have behind it, that is a very good question.
Yeah.
And I will say for sure, 100%, that the next big game is most likely not going to come from a big established studio and publisher. It's going to come from probably somewhere in the indie market, and that does include a fair amount of the Netflix studios.
Yeah.
Because they've got a big open door policy that if your game meets certain factors and qualifications for family friendliness, they're more than willing to take a risk on you, because what they're doing is a risk in and of itself. This is where you get the good stuff. This is where you get the breakout hits. This is where you get that kind of stuff. Now, obviously, more so from the indie market than any kind of like big major publisher, but it's I'm not saying that it's guaranteed to come from there. It's just an opportunity. And if they take care to really sponsor and to help grow those opportunities for new developers, new talents, indie ideas, that's where you'll probably get the big thing. And that big thing can set the tone for games going forward, like we've seen with Fortnite, like we've seen with all the other, just track all the flavors of the years over the past like 2 decades, and you can see that it's going to come from a place that's not necessarily expected, and it'll probably run the market. So will that be Netflix? I kind of doubt it, but at the same time, I would put it more on them than for us to get that from anywhere else, as far as like big studios go, not small guys, obviously.
Yeah, there's such a
as far as the
brand
big
name.
studios, I would be willing to bet that there's potentially a better, healthier future for you working for Netflix than working for EA or working for certainly Activision at the moment, unless of course they get bought out, which it looks like it's going to be.
Yeah.
Or any of these other studios like Ubisoft. Like there's lots of problems in those studios. They're hitting walls constantly. Will that be the same for Netflix? I don't know. We'll see. But
it would have to either be that, like, they get an indie studio that makes this really unique game that becomes the next big thing, or they could do what I would wish they would do, which is take some of the properties that they own and turn them into multimedia franchises, because it honestly seems like that's the direction that the industry is going, right? It's all about IP nowadays. It's all about how you can milk it for everything that it's worth. And Netflix owns a lot of them, and there's probably a lot of video games that can be made out of them. Like, hell, if they can make a video game out of Queen's Gambit, which is what they say that they're doing, they could probably do it with a whole bunch of other stuff that they own. Now, granted, I can't think of what some of them are off the top of my head. I don't watch that much TV, unfortunately, and except for anime lately, because thanks to my fiance. But yeah, maybe either that or the other thing. Otherwise, they're just going to end up losing a whole bunch of money. But maybe they're just used to that right now, because hasn't Netflix always operated at a loss? I think they have.
Not. I don't think they've always operated at a loss. I think there's been times where they've operated at a loss.
No, the majority of the time they have. I'm just wondering if there was a unique time where they haven't. Because they have for the last several years.
I know that they have been making profits in the last in the last half decade. They've definitely made profits, large profits in some of those years. Right now, they're kind of like streaming wars did not go very well for them, but they didn't get completely knocked out.
Yeah, they'll stick around for a little while. All right, and then finally, China's banning more stuff. Why am I not surprised? Do we know what games, or is it just a number?
It's not that they're banning anything in the sense of like direct banning, but this year, they've up until I believe just now, they've only allowed in a total of 27 games.
And how many of those are from Blizzard?
So none. As far as I know, that is none. I don't think Diablo is releasing in China. I could be wrong on that, but I kind of really doubt it. But it does appear as if a grand total of 27 games have been allowed into the country for this quarter, and that those are basically all from studios whom the party technically partially owns or has like certain people involved in. So this is going to be Tencent, this is going to be NetEase, places like that, where they have an office in their headquarters in which a party member takes hold of certain aspects within the company to ensure that they're operating at a acceptable to the party interest. And that's how they've been working there. So this to me isn't big news about Tencent or NetEase getting games released in China. It's a question. My thing and why I found this interesting is I'm sitting here going, who the hell is still trying to get games into China? What kind of idiot would you have to be intentionally investing in a foreign company trying to get your game into China? Because that is not happening right now for the vast majority of companies. There's hundreds of releases this year, and literally a dozen or two might get into China. And you will have to formulate some kind of relationship with the CCP to do so. So, yeah, apparently the whole big push for video game companies and tech companies to get into China, I do believe that was what they call fool's gold, because we are seeing literally nothing there. We're not seeing very much grow, and we are seeing companies like Tencent, like NetEase, they have been suffering. They have had some success, but they've not had nearly the success that they would have had if they weren't in this very weird situation where half of their games and half their products are being denounced in China as evil, which in the form of microtransactions, I think we can all say, right? Yeah. Like, duh, they are evil. Welcome to the club. You're marketing infinite purchases at children. So I don't think that's a good idea. I have to cough.
It's okay. Yeah, no, there's not really a whole lot else to say about that. It's just, I mean, are there really no video game companies outside of China that are actively trying to do business with them at the moment because of the stuff that they've been doing? Because it seems so recent that Activision Blizzard were doing stuff with them.
Yeah, it was. And what happened is that these, somebody got somebody in the party very angry. And because of that, they basically cut off all video games. And for, I think it was like 4 or 5 months, there was not a single video game release in China at all. And a lot of them were forced to shut down. Steam over there has been under basically constant assault by political leanings. And whenever there's a scapegoat to be had, hey, your particular territory did poor in the nation's average, school report card numbers, that kind of stuff. Well, blame video games. And then everybody blames video games and says the video games are the problem. And then everybody kind of like dumps on them for a few weeks. And then, they may or may not, get away from that. So that's really what's been going on for the most part.
Yeah.
And again, it's just this question of like who in their right mind is working for these people right now. Like what, like why would anybody think that this is a good investment? It's not. It's not a healthy investment. It's not an overall good investment right now. It's a good way to get yourself and your marketing killed, because in some of these cases they spent like $100 million in advertising. They did, especially for Dragonlands in China. They did a huge marketing campaign there, and then a few weeks later, everything was shut down. So, yeah, that's kind of messed up when you think about it. And yeah, so it's just a question of like, government and gaming doesn't mix. It's a bad idea.
The only time it mixes is when they have something to blame the tragedies of life on. There are three certainties in life that you can always bet on, ladies and gentlemen: death, taxes, and the government blaming life's tragedies on video games.
Yep.
Yeah. That and yeah.
So yeah, not a good place to be in. I think this is technically actually a good thing, because a lot of the worst forms of video gaming, especially the microtransactions, were geared up, and people said, well, that's how they do it in China. So that was the reasoning for us to get so many of these very poor video games that just are like Babylon's Fall. It was supposed to be huge in China because of microtransactions, because of this infinite scaling stuff that you could do where you just farm all day, every day, and just really basically boiled down to who had the biggest credit cards. So yeah, I think obviously it'll make a return at some point, but for the most part right now, yeah, things are changing.
Yeah, times are changing, as Bob Dylan would say. All right, that does it for us, ladies. I thought this was going to be one of the shorter shows, because honestly, Syb, like, I had the hardest time picking subjects for this week's show. Like, basically nothing's been going on. Nothing huge. Like, there's normally one or two huge stories that we have to talk about each week. That's just the nature of what it's like to live in this part of the 21st century. But we still managed to make a full show out of it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sticking around for as long as you have. If you're listening to us right now, make sure you hit the like button on this video, because if you do that, it tells the YouTube algorithm that not only this video, but all the other videos on the Triple S podcast channel are worth watching, and, helps the overall Triple S brand, which is good. I want to thank Syb, as always, for doing the show with me. Syb, you want to tell people about aforementioned Triple S League?
Yeah, check us out on the main channel, the Triple S League. It's where we got all our guides and video stuff and some hilarious shorts that you should check out.
Yes, in case you ever wanted to know how to talk to snakes. And you guys can just find me at all the regular forms of social media, just at Max Derrat. I'll put links to that and Syb stuff in the description box below. All right, talk to you guys again next Sunday or Monday when I've had some time to play the RE remake. So excited. Hope you guys will join us then when we give our thoughts on that and all the other stuff going on in the world of gaming. Until then, stay yellow.
Goodbye.